Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about resumes, and I'm Micah Martin. I work here in the Center for Personal and Professional Development at Gardner Webb University. And whether you're headed to grad school or into the job world, you're going to need a resume for both of those next seasons of life that our students are usually headed towards. So, most graduate schools now do ask for a resume. And of course, when you apply for a job, you're going to need a resume for that. So, generally, there's two types of resumes that you see most often. One's chronological, one's functional. Today, we're going to focus on a chronological resume and having a chronological resume to use for both grad school or for the job world. If you want to see examples of those, we have several templates out on our website that you can download to create those. I'm going to describe those as I talk today, and all the formatting and content things that I discuss today are based off of those templates as well. And again, they're out there as PDFs or Word documents that you can download to build a resume around. We're going to primarily focus on a chronological resume, which all the content on there is in reverse chronological order, each section, starting with the most recent things that you've done. Down the road, as an alumni, you might need a functional or skills-based resume if you are changing careers. So again, we're always here to help you with that. As we talk today, think about the resume not only as a paper document, but as a digital document. It is still common for folks to print out a resume for an interview and carry those with them to an interview, or somebody to print the resume out that you've shared with them. So again, all of those are likely. So the formatting and making it look good on paper as well as screen does matter. But the other thing you got to remember as a digital document is so often today when you apply for jobs, you're applying by filling out an online form, and you want to have that content at your fingertips to cut and paste from a digital document, your resume, to an online form. It makes it a lot easier, and it will be repetitive at times. But the other reason this matters is as a digital document and as content that you're creating based on your qualifications and a job description, you're looking at applicant tracking software being used by most employers to analyze and scan that data, that text that you import into all those boxes, or actually scanning a PDF of your resume. That is a little more antiquated these days, but typically most employers are using applicant tracking software when you apply for a job, scanning the text that you've imported to figure out, at least initially, who are my top candidates. It's supposed to save time. It keeps the human eye from having to look through every single resume. So again, the content, the actual text on your resume does matter, and we want to pull as much of that as we can from a job description so that we know we're a match for that, as well as our history, the work experiences, and some of the other things that we bring to the table. So we're going to talk about how we weave those two together, our work history and our qualifications, along with text from the job description, so that we're a match for applicant tracking software. So keep that in mind as we talk about the resume. It still needs to be attractive on screen, just like it would on a sheet of paper. Most folks are looking at a resume less than 10 seconds, so we want to keep them reading down the page using information and language from the job description as well as our industry. Generally, you're going to create this as a Word document or a Google Doc, something you can make fluid and continue to update as you grow professionally. For a chronological resume, the content in each section will be in reverse chronological order. We want to stay away from graphics or images. We don't need any colors on there, and I'll talk some more about some specifics too. We want to make sure that the spacing and format are easy to read. We read a resume, even though typically we read left to right. As a resume reader, most folks are scanning down the page. So the spacing and formatting, it's usually single space, but with spacing between each section. And again, you can see the template on our website for an example of that. The one-page preference or rule used to be sort of a common thing. Nowadays, that's less common unless you have an employer that asks you specifically for a one-page resume. Your resume can be as long as it needs to be. You certainly don't want to undersell yourself by creating a one-page resume when it's not necessary. And since most folks aren't regularly printing resumes, but they're looking at them on screen, the length of this matters a little less. I'm going to show you the section headings that we'll use in a few minutes for each category. Easy to read font sizes for a resume in most business documents would be things like Helvetica, Arial, or Calibri. These are your minimalist fonts that are easy to read, especially when you're scanning down the page. We want to keep it simple and avoid colors and images. We want to avoid templates like this. These are very common on the internet. Stay away from these type things, a lot of colors and graphics that are a little bit hard to read with the human eye. They make, especially if you print this out, this would not be appealing to see. A lot of the characters here too are very small. You want to stay away from the faux meters like you see here and here, these arrows and these sort of pie chart things that are not really a great example of how to display your skills and abilities. Here, this person used a sort of dark mode for their resume. Again, we like dark mode on our iPhones or on our laptop screens, but when you print this out, this would use a lot of toner and ink, and it's a little hard to read. Again, light background, dark text is much easier to read for the human eye. You can also see here again, comment on these templates you download. Skills may be displayed with this sort of faux meters. Again, no measurements here. I have no idea what this being all the way across on Photoshop means, or just part of the way across on Illustrator. We want to stay away from that, and I'll talk more about how to display your skills here momentarily. You also don't want to include your photograph on your resume. Due to implicit bias, we don't need to see on your resume what you actually look like. We want to stay away from that. And again, if somebody wants to look you up, they'll use social media or LinkedIn, whether they should or shouldn't. In our humanists, a lot of times folks want to do that, so don't include your picture on your resume. So here are the basic section headings we would expect to see in the appropriate order for most graduates from Gardner Webb, and again, most college graduates. And if you're going to go to grad school, you might want to add a couple of sections for things like research you've done, or any publications or professional conferences or associations you're a part of. But most folks going into the job world, these would be the basic things. The only one that you might would omit is certifications if you don't have any. But again, more and more of our students are leaving the university with some sort of certifications. So again, these are those typical section headings we expect to see, and I'm going to go through each of these and talk about the content for each. So top of the page, either left adjusted or centered, we want to have our contact info. And again, you can reference the template on our website to see this. You want to start with your full and preferred name. And if you have a preferred name, put that in quotation marks so people understand that that's what you prefer to be called. You want your current mailing address, or at least your city and state. Most employers probably aren't going to be mailing you anything at this point, but it is nice for them to see geographically where you're located. Make sure you include a phone number and an email address, and with that phone number, make sure that you are checking your voicemail and have a voicemail box that is receiving messages. Have a professional sounding greeting. For your email, checking your email the professional habit you adopt every day. Your email address needs to be something that sounds moderately professional, so your name, a number at Gmail, something like that. Stay away from humorous email addresses. And again, make sure you're checking your email address regularly. One thing here too, the most common font size when we're talking about the resume is usually about 14 point for the content is about the 14 point size font throughout. You may make it as small as 12. Don't go any smaller than that. But a lot of times I'll see folks with their resume with their name and sort of a much larger font at the top of the page. 16 to 18 point font for your name. Let that be the max. We don't need your name in giant letters at the top of the page. The next section is your professional summary, just below your content information, your contact information. The professional summary is what we used to call, or it's taken the place of what we used to refer to as the objective statement. The objective was always to get the job. And so over the years, we've seen this sort of morph away from a wasted space and wasted language on our resume to sort of a mini cover letter, 3 to 4 lines of text that sort of highlight your top qualifications, those things that you are best at, those things that you want to make sure they don't miss. It grabs their attention. You're using professional language and probably some of the text from a job description so that they see right off the bat that you are a match for this position. Here's an example. Collaborative, detail-oriented professional with excellent customer service skills, experience in the accounting industry, including revenue management, tax preparation, and office management. So again, talking about yourself professionally, using things that are from that job description as long as they are true and accurate for you. You can notice here too that it's phrases. It's not written in first person. It's a little more formal in the professional sense. So we want to make sure that it's summary fashion. Phrases like this, you could use bulleted phrases if you wanted to, but again, typically it's formatted more like 3 to 4 lines of standard text. But again, using things that describe your top qualifications to keep them reading as they start down the page. You may need some help with your professional phrasing. This is normal, and so out on our website, and also just you can Google this, but there are literally hundreds and hundreds of professional phrases you could use to sort of elevate your language, make it sound a little more professional. So as you're writing this, you can always ask for our help with that, but use the resources on our website as well. Here's just some examples of some of those common professional phrasings, and you'll see a lot of this in job descriptions as well. So the next section under your professional summary would be your education. We need the education in the top third of the page. This is the #1 investment you've made in yourself or someone else has made in you. And it's usually the #1 thing that is the top qualification for our undergrads when it comes to what makes them hireable. This is the number one thing you've accomplished up to this point because you haven't had a lot of work history. So you want to make sure that your education is in that top third of the page because it's usually the baseline for employment. And again, that degree, we don't want it missed. If it was at the bottom of the page, tucked away, and someone scanning the page, looking over it quickly, misses that and does not keep you as a top ranked candidate. So education section usually formatted like this: name of the university and location, and we usually typically bold that and the title of the degree. Again, you can reference the template out on our website for that. Include the title of your degree, your concentration. If you have a minor or concentration, add those as well. Out to the right-hand side, you want to put your graduation month and year. And down the right-hand side of the page, as you'll see on the template, we want to make sure that we have our years bolded out there. So the dates and years for these things out there on the right-hand side of the page bolded, just to make it easier to follow the timeline of you down the page as we scan. You can include your GPA. We generally say if it's below a 3.5, don't bother including it. Most employers care less about the GPA than you would imagine. You also want to list all your degrees in reverse chronological order. So if you've had an associate's degree, that would go below your current degree. So you list your most recent degree first in this section, followed by a previous degree. So if you're working on a master's degree, that would be first, and then your bachelor's degree, and if you had an associate's degree after that. And again, formatting them all the same with these 3 to 4 bullet points at the top that we talked about here. The next section would be your experience. So this is really the meat of the resume for most folks who have had some work history, but if you've not had much work history as a typical college student, then maybe this section has less content than you would hope for right now. But again, you'll get that as you get out into the work world. Again, this section would be in reverse chronological order with your most recent things at the top of that section. You want to list all your relevant positions. You want skills-focused job descriptions. So these would always start with the title of the job description or the title of the position, excuse me, and out to the right, the year that you started that position or the duration of that position. So it may say 2024 to the present, or it may say 2022 to 2023, something like that. And then under that, you want to have the name of the company and the city, state where it's located. Share specifics that match that job description. Use skills-focused language, and I'll show you some examples of how to write that in just a minute. If you have internships, work study, even job shadowing things, volunteer experiences that felt like professional experiences, they can all be included in this experience section. It doesn't necessarily have to be employed, paid for work experience here, and some folks don't have as much as others. So if you've had professional experiences, they go in this section in reverse chronological order. The point of this section is to demonstrate a history of preparation for the job you're applying for now. It is common for college students to find it a little difficult to write about themselves professionally. So we want to start off by thinking about what are some of those things that I could say about myself in 2 to 3 bullet points under a job description, maybe 3 to 4 bullet points actually would be best, describing the work you've done. So we use this little PAR acronym, projects, activities, and results. We want to talk about projects we're involved in or the actual work and responsibilities we had. The activities or actions we took, the actual skills we used to accomplish that work. But we often forget to talk about why our work mattered, the results of that work. So we want to make sure that we talk about why that work mattered, the impact of your work, the quality customer service, or you might have created a great experiential environment for all patrons, phrasing like that. Again, trying to make sure that we understand that we're conveying to the employer that we understand why quality in our work matters, that the impact of our work matters to someone. So you may want to use this little PAR acronym as you write those. Maybe you have 3 bullet points for each, and one's a P, one's an A, one's an R from this little acronym here. Here's some examples of things you might say. We want to focus more on the skills and not on the tasks. It's common for me to see on resumes. Folks might have had an office position, working as an office admin, and maybe one of the tasks they bulleted there was answered the phone. Well, you probably did answer the phone, but it might sound more professional to say communicated with customers to assist them with questions and needs. That bullet point would sound much more professional than just answered the phone. So again, don't undersell yourself by being too summary here. Maybe you've had some customer service experience running a cash register. Well, we don't want to say the words ran cash register. The bullet point under that one might sound better to say frontline retail sales, including payments, refunds, inventory, etc. So just some examples there. It's also common to include action verbs in these because you're talking about things you're actually doing. If it's a past tense position, your action verbs should be ED words. If it's a current position, a position you're in right now, you can use ING words for those verbs, or just list it like you would in the job description: correspond with, present, determine, discern, those kind of things without ED or ING because it's more current and a little more generic in that design. We have a handout on our website you can download that's probably a couple hundred action verbs, but you can also just Google these if you need help with this. And again, our office always is able to help you as you design your resume. The next section after work experience or after experience would be your skills section. On the template online, you'll see that the skills section, because we were trying to get it to one page to make it easy to print, is just a list of words listed across the page that are describing professional behaviors and professional qualifications and abilities. I'll show you some examples here in a few minutes. But you want to use your job description as your guide here. You want to list skills that match the skills in the job description, but they need to be true and accurate for you. You don't need to say that you're fluent in Spanish when you're not. That's not honest. So we want to be specific, but we also want to be honest. We want to include technology skills because those matter a lot. You can include language skills here. So if you are fluent in a language, all skills that add value, and again, this could be soft skills, your people-oriented skills, as well as hard skills, those actual task-oriented things you do. It's really important to remember that utility players make good hires. Employers are looking for the Swiss Army knife when it comes to skills, not the butter knife. They want someone who can do a lot of different things, and again, somebody that only has a small skill set will probably not be preferred over most candidates for a job. You can Google common skills for different fields. It's easy to look on job descriptions on LinkedIn or Glassdoor Indeed to see what those skills and qualifications are for the jobs that you're looking for and applying for, those that are common. You can Google common skills for someone in the marketing field, and you'll see a ton of those listed there. But again, you only list skills that are relevant and true for you. I think it's best on your resume to list these as two little bulleted columns where you're just listing the words. So here's some examples. If you are an accounting person, you might have sales experience, communication, teamwork, CRM, that's customer relationship management software. You might list customer service. The other thing about this graphic too, you see the overlap here that the marketing folks have some of the same skills as the accounting folks. Again, we want to be utility players and sort of be cross-trained in a lot of different things and look like a very diverse candidate and not sort of a one-trick pony. So just some examples there. Hard skills you might include software proficiencies, some programming skills. Soft skills involve interacting with people, things like teamwork, collaboration, flexibility, empathy, adaptability, leadership, those kind of things. Here's some examples, and I would list these on my resume just like they're listed here, a bulleted list, 2 columns of skills that you could put right there in the skills section on your resume. And again, no faux meters here like you see on those templates. We're not trying to show measurement in these skills. This is something you can back up with examples you share in an interview, but this is just a good example of what it might look like as you include it on your resume. Don't forget that in this day and time, having artificial intelligence skills, even the ability to use tools like ChatGPT or Microsoft Pilot may be really important. You may start to see these in your job descriptions, things like chatbots and some of the other technologies that incorporate AI skills. So don't be hesitant about including those. If you have them, you'll start to see them lots more in the job world over the next few years. The next section after skills would be your certification section. Now, if you don't have any current certifications, you can omit this. But if you are certified in anything, whether that just be something as simple as American Red Cross, First Aid, and CPR, you can certainly include that on your resume. But typically, we want to include certifications that are either required for the job or are very relevant to the field we're going into. So this may matter more in certain fields. Certifications may be something as simple as that you have a Microsoft Excel certification, but it could be as professional level as having a certification in Python as someone doing coding work. Most of the time when we list certifications, you list the title of the certification and the organization that is certifying you, and then out to the right, the date or year that you were certified. Some of these, the years matter because every few years you might have to re-up that certification and be recertified. Again, if you don't have this section, it's okay to omit, but you might start to see that a lot of the jobs you're applying for require certain certifications, and if that's true for your field, get certified. Find out how you get those certifications, and so you can include those on your resume. The last section, and again, you'll see this at the very bottom of the page on the template that's on our website, activities, involvement, honors. You can call this section a variety of things. You might call it activities, community service, honors and service. But this is the sort of catch-all space where we want to include some things that show that we're a multi-dimensional human being that is involved in a lot of different things, and not just in work, not just in our academics. You may list volunteerism and service here, which employers like to see. If you were part of any organizations and clubs here on our campus, even church affiliation is fine there. We're not trying to talk about religion and spiritual things here, but church affiliation is okay, especially in certain fields. You might be a part of different civic organizations or boards. You might have a specific hobby that's relative to, and again, let me emphasize relative to your field. Not just random hobbies you do for fun here. You might have some awards and recognitions here that you would include, but you're listing things that set you apart as a human being, but also convey to the employer that I am a multidimensional human. I do have ways to recreate and re-energize, and a lot of employers look at this section to get a read on whether or not you might be a burnout risk. This sometimes lends to our coping skills and the fact that we have a lot of people skills if we're involved in things in our community, and that we can juggle multiple things by having clubs and organizations. Maybe we were a college athlete, those kind of things, while we're going to school and working. That looks really well to be able to manage my time and sort of multitask in a lot of different areas. So again, activities, involvement, service, honors, whatever you want to call this section at the bottom of the page, it's sort of a catch-all. And again, on the left-hand side, you would list what the actual thing was, the opportunity, and then out on the right-hand side, the years you were involved. And again, like the rest of the resume for consistency, have those dates out on the right-hand side bolded just so it's easy to read down the page. The last section on your resume would be references, and you can see on the template on our website that we have put at the bottom of the page the phrase in italics centered there, references available upon request. You can include a references page, and it would just need to say references at the top of the page, but also it's good to start this page with your contact info section again from your first page of your resume, because it is often printed and detached and passed out for people to make calls or reach out to references, and we want to know exactly who we're talking about. So having your contact info at the top of the page, then followed by your references contact information is very important. Also, just to note here too, make sure that you are syncing up your sort of stories and examples with your references, making sure that they understand the story you want told. You may have to remind them of some things to share. And it's always important to ask someone to be a reference, not to tell them later that they are being used as a reference. Get permission first. Make sure that you have their contact info correct so that when you share that, it's easy to get in touch with them and give them the heads up to be watching for emails or phone calls where they're being used as a reference. Once you've created your resume, save this thing. Create a master file that you can make copies from and make different versions from if you need to. Make sure that you always title and date these appropriately so they're easy for an employer to identify if you're sharing it with them. So it's good to have your full name there and the position title as a part of the title of that document. And you save these and back these up as well. It's really hard to recreate your resume from scratch. So again, making sure that you have this saved will be very helpful in the long run. One note on cover letters, there's information out on our website. Most of the time when you create a resume, you're also being asked to submit a cover letter. We see these as less common these days. Some employers not asking for them at all, but it's still important to be able to create one. It's a good example of professional communication. You can find a template out on our website to do that, and our office is always happy to help you sort of get that polished and looking great before you share it with a profile, share that profile, that cover letter with an employer. We want to highlight specific qualifications. We want to make sure that we're sounding grateful for the opportunity. But we're talking about 3 paragraphs max here, as you see that example on our website. So don't overthink it. Don't worry too much about a lot of detail there, because it should reference the details you've already shared in your resume. So again, having a cover letter, knowing how to create one is important. I would refer you to that section on our website for more details. And again, have our office look at that before you share it with an employer. Please follow us on Instagram. We're always sharing more different opportunities and lots of things we feature out there for the professional readiness side of college. So you want to make sure that you're checking us out at GW Career on Instagram. If you've got questions for us or need to reach out, we would love to have you do that. One of the great things you can do too is email us your resume and then schedule an appointment for us to be able to review that with you and give it some final polish before you share it with an employer. Our email address is the word career@gardner-webb.edu. Again, out on our website, you can find information about resumes, LinkedIn, career exploration, preparing for interviews, job and internship search, and of course, Handshake. Handshake is the primary place as a college student you should be looking for jobs and internships. and you can access that through your Web Connect account. But if you need help with any of those things or any other things that are relative to professional development, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks again, and let us know if you have questions.